Hello, everyone. Well, and my name is Sébastien Chopin, and today I'm excited to talk about the journey to Nuxt 3. It has been a long development process. There have been so much going on, so many improvements to the framework, and today I will do my best to explain what we have been doing for almost 2 years. It started in July 2020, where Pinia did the first commit toward the new repository, and still private today. And it's completely rewritten in TypeScript for easier maintenance and built-in TypeScript support. In August, we also implemented Webpack 5 support that we early started in 2018 for Nuxt 2. And obviously, it also has breaking changes, but it also improved the performances and add the caching layer. In September, we implemented the last version of Vue Router with the help of Eduardo, San Morote, and we support the pages directory with the enhanced syntax. In October, we supported Vue 3 with the server-side rendering, but we had to rewrite the whole bundle renderer that was working for Vue 2 when it's about the Webpack bundle, and it has been rewritten with TypeScript for Vue 3. So that's not an easy task. In November, we started pushing something much beyond only server-side rendering, and it's called Nuxt Nitro. That's actually when we started working on Nitro that I'm going to explain in another slides. But it pushed the deployment of Nuxt beyond node server or only static site generation. In January, we started implementing Vite support. So I think some of you may be aware of it. If you know, you can raise your hand. I won't see it, sadly. We started doing it for Nuxt 3, and we also backported it for Nuxt 2 with the Nuxt Vite package. You can already use it today. It's still in beta, and Anthony Fu, who joined the Nuxt Labs team, is working pretty hard on it to make it as stable as possible. In February, Nuxt Nitro was able to work in major serverless platforms such as Vercel, Netlify, Azure, AWS, and even Cloudflare Workers. In March, we created this Nuxt.js organization. You can check on GitHub, and this is the foundation of the new Nuxt framework. We splitted many of the dependency into small packages with a single purpose. On top of that, it does not only work for Node.js, it also works for Dino and any JavaScript environment, such as the browser or even the workers. So I highly recommend you guys to check out this Nuxt.js organization to get familiar with the Nuxt 3 code base. Also in March, we started to init Nuxt Kit as well as Nuxt CLI. Nuxt Kit is a toolkit for Nuxt module author, so they can write a module in a more simpler way as well with type completion. And it will work for both Nuxt 3 and Nuxt 2, so it will be a smooth upgrade. And on top of that, the Nuxt CLI, that will be called Nuxt. On top of running the Nuxt dev, Nuxt build, Nuxt start command, we will also add this Nuxt add module command. So you will be able to scaffold easily a simple app, but progressively add module on the go. In May 20, after adding the pages support, we added the optional page support, which means that you can start a Nuxt 3 application only with the app.vue file. So Vue Router will become optional. This means that you will have the lightest Vue bundle as possible if you don't need a routing. In June, we worked, and Daniel mostly worked, on the layout support, which is similar to Nuxt 2, but on top of that, he gives new features and capabilities, such as using slots directly inside the layout, which was one of the biggest features asked from the community. This is not necessarily asked, but native ESM support is one of the hardest challenge we hit in 2020 and 2021. As you know, you can already use export default syntax in your Nuxt.config, but with this, we push it much further. so it supports the modules and as well as the server routes and middleware. In August, Anthony and Pinia also supported this auto global import. The advantage of Nuxt 2 and the option API is you can use data computed without having to import anything, which is really sexy from my point of view. But with Nuxt 3 and this auto global import, you can use script setup or even script Nuxt setup and directly use ref, computed, watch without having to import them, as well as the Nuxt composition API for data fetching and other features. In September, which is actually this month, at the beginning of this month, we started creating this Nuxt Bridge package, which is the bridge between Nuxt 2 and Nuxt 3. So the name was not that hard to find. And it actually includes most of the features we added in Nuxt 3 to Nuxt 2 user, except Vue 3. So you can keep using Nuxt 2 if you're happy with Vue 2, but keep having this new improvement that we have worked for a year and a half in your Nuxt 2 application. And last week, we supported Vite build for production. Because actually, the Vite support was only in development, and then we'll keep using Webpack for production. But now, Vite build will build your Vue application with rollup. This means that we have two different builds, but it allows us to see what are the optimization from each community and aim for the best choice in the future. So that is for the timeline. I'm stressed, but I don't see anyone. That's crazy. It's been 440 days with 309 pull requests on the repository, which is more than one commit per day. And we created 216 issues to track all of our progress and bug inside of it. And on top of that, on this Nuxt.js organization, we created more than 40 repositories that I highly recommend you to check out to understand the foundation of the new framework. Now let's talk about Nuxt Nitro. And it's not that easy to explain. Daniel Rowe did a talk at Vue.js Global about Nuxt Nitro, and I highly recommend to watch it. It's a second stage build, so we do have Webpack or Vite that will bundle your Vue application. And on top of that, when you will run Nuxt build, we have Nitro that we bundle on top of this your Vue app and your server, so any API routes, directly into a highly optimized output directory. This output directory, you can directly move it outside of your project. You don't need a node module. It will have a node module inside. It will be super small, and it can actually run absolutely everywhere on Node, Dino, and even the workers. It is super small, and it's made for cold start performance. On the Nuxt 2 framework, when you run Nuxt start, it's around 250 milliseconds to start. With Nitro, we are about 5 milliseconds to start. And on Cloudflare Worker, we directly removed the cold start. On top of that, for not talking about the performance side, you are able to have a server directory inside your Nuxt app, Nuxt 2 and Nuxt 3, with the API routes, like pages, but you can create an API route easily. We support hot module replacement, which was one of the hardest things we did. We created a project that was called Workstation that we never released. It was quite hard to support this. Thanks to Nitro, we are able to give you these capabilities of a full stack framework, the simplicity of Nuxt 2. And the isomorphic fetch is another improvement on top of it to reduce the number of HTTP requests when you call your own API. Quickly talking about the highly optimized output. We use Vercel NFT package for tracking all the dependency, so we can trim your node module directory, kind of copying it, but only keeping the JavaScript file that are used in your project when it's about the Node.js target. And this actually produces a minimum bundle around 1 megabyte. Inside of this, since we push the performances as much as we can, we also code split your server bundle, which means that if you have an API route and you have your Vue application, if someone is directly calling the API for the first time, we won't even load your Vue bundle in the server, in the Nuxt server, but directly the API route, which is also code splitted, will be loaded and directly called. Like I mentioned, the server bundle is less than 1 megabyte by default, and the cold start is 75 to 100 times faster than Nuxt 2. And most of all, one of the hardest challenge was to make it cross-platform. So for this, we worked on mocking a lot of Node.js packages that are mostly not used for supporting the worker target. When I'm talking about the worker target, think of Cloudflare workers that allow us to do edge-side rendering. It's costless and it's faster. So wherever you are in the world, you can have this server-side rendering with the feeling of a static site generation. We created a lot of ultra lightweight polyfill for Node built-in that are inside the Node.js organization on GitHub. And we also have this platform auto detection. So you can, with Nuxt Bridge and Nuxt 3, deploy to Vercel, Netlify, and major serverless platform without configuration. On top of that, we push it even further, and we are able to make Nuxt render inside the browser service worker. It's highly experimental because obviously you will leak some of the server code inside the browser service worker, but this can have some performance benefits for, let's say, a dashboard, an admin dashboard. And like I mentioned, you can deploy it everywhere, and this is the platform we support, on top of all the platform we support already for Nuxt 2. Nuxt Bridge is the project, the name that started this week, and it's to bring all the Nuxt 3 improvements for Nuxt 2 user. This actually brings the Nitro engine that I talked just before, that will enhance your performances without touching anything. It will also support Xmax script by default. You will have this built-in TypeScript support, where on Nuxt 2 it's still tricky to use TypeScript. It will be much more smooth with Nuxt Bridge. And on top of that, we are actually porting the Nuxt 3 composition API back to Nuxt 2 with this auto import feature. So you will be able progressively to transform your code in Nuxt 2 using the composition API to make it ready for the jump to Nuxt 3. And on top of that, experiencing bit performance for development and as well as production when it will be optimized also for production. Doesn't work. So basically, to recap, Nuxt 3 is lighter. So the modern client bundle will be up to 5 times smaller than the Nuxt 2 bundle, JavaScript bundle. And for deployment, 100 times smaller. The current deployment of Nuxt 2 is around 15 megabytes, which is less than 1 megabyte for Nuxt Bridge and Nuxt 3. It will be, I don't have any more battery. It will be faster with this optimized cold start performance and dynamic server-side rendering code splitting powered by H3. H3 is the actual server that powers Nitro, and it replaces Connect that we use for Nuxt 2. Most of all, we have thought a lot about this hybrid rendering or incremental static generation, or all the fancy word that is around the Jamstack. And we are going to explain how it works, but basically it will be as simple as Nuxt 2, but you will have the capability of specifying a page at the page level if you want to have it static for the whole deployment or a specific amount of time. We implemented from the beginning the suspense feature of Vue 3 that allow you to do data fetching at any level, from the layout to the smallest component. But on top of that, you're able to say, these components, you will have to wait for the client-side navigation. And this is amazing, and I cannot wait you to try it. It's pretty hard to explain just visually. The composition API, like I mentioned before, async data, fetch, this is transformed to composition API. We will see how we can implement it as option API, but since it requires some options, we will have to find a nice way. And once we open it, feedback will be more than welcome on this. The Nuxt CLI that I discussed before, it is a zero dependency experience, so it will be blazing fast to use. You won't have to download the whole Nuxt package in order to use the CLI. It will also allow us to have a dev tool, like the Vue dev tool, but giving you more information about your Nuxt application. On top of that, the Nuxt Kit that allow you to create module or upgrade your Nuxt module to work also on Nuxt 3. We don't want the community to split, like having Nuxt 3 module only. We want to educate how to easily upgrade your Nuxt module to a Nuxt 3 experience. You may have seen the work from Anthony and Pinia with this unplugin package that allow anyone from making a plugin that works for both Webpack, Vite, Rollup, and more bundler. Webpack 5, of course, that's we have Webpack since Nuxt 1. Vite, which is a great innovation that we also want to support. Vue 3, obviously, and TypeScript, I would say obviously also. It's a great user experience, but it's not mandatory for the people that don't love TypeScript, and it's fine. In the meantime, we didn't only work on Nuxt 3, as you may have expected. We love Nuxt 2, and it's a solid foundation, and all of our websites are still using Nuxt 2 at the moment. So since July from last year, we released 23 version of Nuxt 2. We actually closed 82% of 1,000 issues. We commented and merged around 500 pull requests. We also added this faster static generation when you actually run Nuxt generate. That is avoiding to build again if you didn't change any of your Vue code. We also released Nuxt image, in case you haven't noticed. That is giving you fast image and optimized image for your Nuxt application easily, supporting at least 10 providers. And most of all, plenty of contribution and module created from the community. And I'm really thankful for this. Basically, our mission is to be an intuitive framework that scales with your project and team. It's kind of a progressive framework, but we do love this file system API. So creating a file should be is quite easy and should be as simple as adding a feature or a functionality into your application. Today, we have 1.6 million downloads per month. We have 37 stars on GitHub. We also have more than 200 live websites from built with, from what I've seen. And we have 500,000 unique visitors on Nuxt.js.org. So a lot of people are actually reading the documentation, which is quite nice. So what about Nuxt 3? Well, currently, we are in a private beta. Not for long, but we opened it 2 weeks ago to Vue core team member, Nuxt module authors, and partners. And we're adding more members every week to get their feedback, their Vue expertise, as well as Nuxt expertise, to make sure the module ecosystem and the Vue 3 implementation is as good as possible, because once we open it, it will be harder to create breaking changes. But then what about the Nuxt 3 public beta? We finally settled for a date, and it will come in less than a month. Really excited to finally open it to the public. It's not an easy task to work in the dark, let's say in a private repository. We cannot wait to have your feedback. We still need to finalize the end-to-end test to make sure that we won't have regression, but we have a strong base and we are happy to open it to the community. In the meantime, we also worked on this Nuxt.js.org website, which was absolutely beautiful. But we decided to have a refresh of the identity. So you can check out the Nuxt.js.org website. The Nuxt Labs team and also the community helped a lot. So thank you very much for your work. It's live on Nuxt.js.org, and it's also open source. If you want to take a look, it's built also from Docus, which is the next iteration of the Nuxt content module, if you have been following it. And that's most of my updates for today. Obviously, next month I will have much more updates. This website is also aimed to be updated more frequently. So expect new announcements in the following weeks working on this website and on the Twitter, obviously. I'm Sébastien Chopin. I am the co-creator and CEO at Nuxt Labs. You can find me on the social network with @Nuxt. And on top of working on the Nuxt.js framework, which is the intuitive Vue framework for modern web development, we're also working on Docus that we plan to open source around next month as well, which will be an open source framework, and also Vue Telescope. If you want to discover all the websites from the Vue community, I recommend you to check. It's free as well. We love the Vue community. I personally love Vue. I like React, but I love Vue. And we want to push as many stuff as we can to this community. Thank you very much for your time.